to vote back then.
Mm-hmm.
No one had the right to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So, this thing about false history matrix that we're talking about is, it becomes important because if you can change someone's history and through that then make them think that they're free
mm-hmm.
when they're not free,
mm-hmm.
well, then of course they'll lay their lives down, as they put it into the movie Mission Impossible 3. Yeah, I'll shed my life and bleed all over that flag just to make sure those stripes run red.
Sure.
And so that's the kind of programming that I see going on here. And in my opinion, it's extremely unfortunate. And I got as angry about it as anyone else, Patrick,
mm-hmm.
but I could not refuse the truth that was in front of my face.
So this is Orwellian stuff to a whole nother level. I mean, he was onto something, absolutely. But this is a lot deeper. You're talking about this has always been going on.
I believe they told him in the Matrix, the architect told Neo, the Matrix is older than you know.
You mentioned the Matrix several times, and of course it's a classic, and we all love it, and kind of all have our ideas of from the spiritual perspective and all that about it, being in the world and not of it and that. But David, I'm curious of how possibly the Coen brothers could know all this stuff.
Well, that's a mystery to me.
Yeah, I mean, how could a couple of movie guys?
I don't know.
How could a couple of movie guys know all this stuff? I mean, they didn't do this kind of research. Somebody had to. I don't know. Seems I shouldn't say they didn't. Maybe they did.
Well, it's very interesting that I don't know if you remember this. You may be old enough. I'm not sure to remember a movie that was done with Robert Redford in it called 3 Days of the Condor.
Certainly, yeah, one of my favorites. Yeah.
And he was a reader and writer for what agency?
CIA, right?
Yeah. They have think tank groups everywhere, all over this planet. And this was his number one job. He had no other job. He had no clue about anything else that the agency did, other than he was a reader and book writer and read all the scenarios, everything that could be played out, that could be written. Well, should we do this or should we do that? Or should we sink a ship in the Bay of Pigs and blame it on someone else? Right. This is the kind of thing that goes on. So, yeah, they have entire groups that write books and scenarios. In my opinion.
To what end? I mean, so they're not really bad guys. They're just, whatever, part of the game?
That's an interesting term about what we call bad or good and evil. I don't really get into that. I only try to look at what makes sense to me is the construct. What's the operational guidelines, what's going on, what are the treaties, agreements, the contracts, the constitutions, what is my contracting agreement or whatever, or my treaty in my relationship inside the construct. And I still go back to the Matrix movie and contend that it is about international law, and it's all about how to come out of the system and live in peace.
Okay, we're going to take a quick little break here, David Williams. Stay right there. I think this stuff's fascinating. And once again, I don't know this gentleman that well, and I don't, I'm not skilled enough in all of this stuff to ask even tougher questions. I'm trying to understand, if he's saying anything that maybe even though he believes is totally true, maybe it's not. So that would only be for you and I to figure out. But it sure is fascinating. It is 11 o'clock Central Time. We're going to go for a little while longer. And once again, we appreciate your support of OneRadioNetwork.com. We have changed our schedule as of 2 or 3 weeks ago to doing live shows just off the cuff, like this one today. We're going to do another live show tomorrow with Mitch Batros and Saturday evenings. And then other shows we'll do record it, and I just wanted more time so I can do my passion, which is to write screenplays. And but your ongoing support is really needed because we have a lot of expenses just to do what we do, even without the live show every day. So 10 or 15 or 20 bucks through PayPal. You don't have to be a member. It's well appreciated, well used, and we appreciate your generosity. And then also on the front page of OneRadioNetwork.com, we really have a great a lineup of people and products that we think are some of the best. They really are some of the best. And whether it be the colloidal silver or the colostrum or the deer antler or Michael King's products from Pyro Clay, the Liver Life right there on the front page, which is a great product. So if you click through, we get a commission, and that helps keeps the, the bandwidth and the servers and, all this stuff and the telephones and all the silly things we do. So thanks for your support ongoing at OneRadioNetwork.com.
Nothing is more expensive than bad information. Know the source. OneRadioNetwork.com. Talk to Patrick now. 888-663-6386 or email patrick@OneRadioNetwork.com.
Kind of a perfect day to do the conversation that we're doing this morning with David Williams. It is Memorial Day, May 31st, 2010. May 31st, 2010. My name is Patrick Timpone. David Williams, his website, therightofselfdetermination.com. If you're just tuning in, you want to go back and hear this podcast, which will be on the site this afternoon, and pass it on to everybody that you care about, especially those in the, quote, patriot community, unquote, which a lot of people are. People are just wanting to try to understand more of history and what's really going on. David has been looking in these things for 12 years. How do you remember all this stuff?
That's an interesting question. Recently I was on a trip, and I think I may have mentioned it to you. I was in Fort Lauderdale, came back, and I heard the radio program. I don't listen to a lot of radio. Some guy talking about express anything.
Okay, you're starting to fade out in and out, so let's see if we can get a stronger signal there. I hope it's not Skype.
Let me adjust my headset. Okay. Does that help?
Well, I'll let you know if it starts to fade. So you heard something on the radio?
What I heard on the radio was a gentleman talking about the 10,000-hour rule, and it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at anything. And that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you become an expert, but what I think happens, especially with me, after these years, I have over 30,000 hours of this, and I live it because I'm an ambassador for another jurisdiction. So because I'm always dealing with it, and I told someone the other day, it's almost like it's ingrained in my DNA now.
So you read it and you remember it somehow.
Oh, I remember most of it because I've had to apply it in so many areas. I mean, we ended up in 2000 when I thought I had constitutional rights. Mm-hmm. We ended up filing 4 federal lawsuits for RICO, but we were styling our documents differently. We started going into words and language and doing things that the courts really had not really seen before. Yeah. And I know they hadn't seen it because they were paying very close attention. But we started captioning our documents, and we've actually, once we figured out the right of self-determination and started learning a little bit, we styled our documents Unity States of our world, not United States of America. And one of the gentlemen that I worked with closely flew to Bern, Switzerland to file a treaty with the Universal Postal Union and then to the Vatican to file a treaty there. And so the courts they understood what we were doing before we understood it. It took me until 2004 to figure out exactly what we were doing, and that's when I bought a book. And in the book, it had the treaty on the peaceful settlement of disputes being the right of self-determination. And when I looked at that, I went, this is what we've been doing. And we were looking for a way out the door. We weren't looking for a way to change the system. We were looking for a way to create our own system.
What do you mean, a way out the door? So in other words, create your own place or jurisdiction or mini little country, whether it be only 50 people, to have protection and real freedom? Is that what you mean?
Well, over the years, Patrick, because of doing so much of this, I try to boil things down into very simple philosophies.
Okay.
And I have a philosophy that I talk about on conference calls and that I do weekly now. And it is that there are 2 kinds of people on this planet. We're all here to be good stewards, to be productive. That's what we came here for, to take responsibility. And in